In these questions you're being asked to carry out some estimates of numbers that are being multiplied or divided. Remember that you're being asked to do it to one significant figure, and that means you need to remember about place values. And the most significant numbers, the biggest numbers, are always to the left. So as you go further out to the left, it'll be thousands. Coming back in from left to right, it'll be hundreds or tens or maybe units. The most significant figure is going to be one that's on the furthest left. That's all you've got to remember. So let's crack on with looking at these questions then. So let's start with the very first one here. The 4.13, well, the most significant number there is the 4. We can round this down to 4. And the 2.16, well, we can round that down to 2. So 4 times 2 becomes 8. The next one, 379.2 times 8.59. Looks awfully complicated, doesn't it? But 379.2, we're talking about the most significant figure again. So the most significant is going to be hundreds, 379. So the nearest hundred here is 400. So we'll put 400 down there. And we're going to multiply that by not 8.59, but in terms of units, we're going to round this up to 9 units. So it becomes 400 times 9. Now that's really 4 times 9, which is 36. Plus the 2 zeros I got to put back in because it wasn't 4, it was 400, and I get 3,600. Next one, 9.6 times 2.56. Well, that 9.6, if you're following what we're doing here in terms of the method, that'll become 10. And the 2.56, that'll round up to a nice round 3. So it's 10 times 3, which is 30. Keep it simple. Now this next one we've got to be careful because it's not a multiply, it's a divide sign here. So we need 5738 divided by 49.52. Well, we're talking about thousands here. The most significant area place is 5,000. We're going to round that up to 6,000. So 6,000 here divided by not 49.59 but by 50. So it's 6,000 divided by 50. So that's going to be equal to, well, instead of saying 6,000 divided by 50, we can call that 600 divided by 5, taking a 0 off each of the numbers, dividing by 10. So 600 divided by 5 is a nice easy 120. You can check that one out for yourself. Bit of short division. Okay, moving to the numbers on the right hand side. We've got 41.13 multiplied by 6.34. Keeping it simple again, the 41.13 will become 40. The 6.34 will become 6. So it's 40 times 6. I'm going to treat that as 4 multiplied by 6 to give me 24. And then add in the extra 0 because it wasn't 4 I multiplied by, it was 40. So I'll put the 0 back in. And so the answer is 240. Next one again, we've got to be careful because there's a divide sign here. Now we've got 1,282, so we're talking about the thousands being the most significant. I'm going to round that down to 1,000. 1,282 rounds down to 1,000. The most significant figure here on the right hand side, the 40, becomes tens, 40 rather than 40.45. So I end up 1,000 divided by 40. Well, that's the same as saying 100 divided by 4. And 100 divided by 4 is a quarter of 100, which is 25. And again, you can check that with short division. Our next number, 28.74 multiplied by 22.09. We're multiplying again. The most significant figure here is the 2, which means we're into tens. We've got 28 tens. 28 is 28. 2 lots of 20 plus 8. So I'm going to round that up to 30. And then I'm going to multiply that by not 22.09. I'm going to round that down to 20. So I've got 30 times 20. I'm going to make that 3 times 2, which will give me 6. And then because it's 20 times 30, I've got to add the 2 zeros back in. There we go, the answer is 600. And our last number on question 1 is 333.98 multiplied by 55.31. Again, we're talking about 300s. I'm going to round that down to 300. And we've got 55, so we're talking about 10, so I'm going to round that up to 60. So I've got 300 times 60, which is really 3 times 6, giving me 18. But because I had 300 and a 60, I've got 3 zeros to put on the end of that. 2 zeros plus 1 0. So my answer is actually 18,000. So I'm going to mark that and see how well we've done. Perfect score. So let's move on to question 2, which is slightly shorter. Now I'll see here it says by rounding the numbers in the questions to one significant figure, work out these estimates, and you must show you're working out. So we've got to put our actual numbers in before we show the answer. So it says Martine works 34.5 hours a week for 41 weeks a year. Estimate how many hours Martine works each year. Well, the 34.5, we're talking about tens again. The 3 is the most significant. I'm going to round that down to 30. And the 41 weeks a year, again, the most significant figure is the 4, so I'm going to round that down to 40, not 41. That's a bit like 3 times 4 is 12, and then I've got 2 zeros to put in to give me 1,200 hours a year approximately that she works. Second question, or second part of this question, she earns £306 per week. Estimate how much Martine earns per year. Okay, so we know she's earning 306. The most significant again figure is the 300s. I'm going to make that 300. But she works 41 weeks a year, so I'm going to make that round down to 40. Again, the most significant figures are the 3 and the 4. 3 4s are 12. And then I add in the extra zeros, 1, 2, 3 zeros there to give me £12,000 a year that she earns. And in the final part, Martine earns £9.95 an hour for working overtime. She wants to save £600 to pay for a holiday. So the question is, estimate how much overtime Martine needs to do to earn this amount, and give your answer to the nearest hour. So this is really a division. We need to take the 600 we've got here. Now we're going to divide that by the number of pounds she earns for working overtime per hour. But we're not going to use 9.95. We're going to round that up to the most important figure here. The most significant figure is the 9. It's units. So £9.95 will become 10 units. And 600 divided by 10, we just take a 0 off to give me 60 hours that she'd have to work to get the overtime, approximately. So let's mark that and see how we've done. Perfect score. If we look over here, we've got a nice perfect score. So altogether, we've got our 24 out of 24 down at the bottom here. Nice and easy? Yep, I think so. Once you know what you're doing, it's really straightforward. That's the end of that question.